Many of X6's stages are often said to be overwhelming in some manner. Weapon Center is usually dismissed as a haphazard enemy gallery known more for its seemingly incomprehensible boss. However, I find both the stage and the boss to be an expression of X6's design direction in a unique way. In stage sections, 3 hazards are used to serve unique purposes. Illumina continuously attacks the player, group jets spawn on a cycle that you have to keep track of, and nightmare viruses are present in specific spots and serve as roadblocks. During mid-bosses and near rescues, viruses instead serve the purpose of making the player deal with several of them in order to have breathing room to deal with other hazards. Group jets move vertically to match the player's position on extreme mode, letting them corner the player more easily while allowing taking care of the leading one sooner. When the player bypasses group jets, they perform a splitting movement while releasing an aimed bullet each. Destroying the leading one will cause the green ones to flock towards the player. Because of Illumina, you'll want to take care of them on the fly, but because the two behaviors don't contradict each other, it's better to avoid them or take care of the bottom ones in stage areas in order to progress. To make this more difficult, their respawn timer depends on them despawning, so if one of them lingers, you'll have to adapt to the next group spawning at a different point, and if you stop to rescue a Reploid, you might want to take care of the leading one instead to quickly deal with them, as you'll also have to deal with a nightmare virus nearby. Some of the rescues, like the one between platforms and the one above the wire, can lead you to being compromised by one of the hazards. Taking care of one gives time for another to activate or corner you. In the second section, Illumina's attack changes to 3 hovering enemies that fire a laser towards your vertical position if you're caught by the tracker. Dodging the tracker simply requires being above it when it crosses you, but the difficulty increases if you're doing so while trying to get a rescue. While just clearing the stage is focused on rooting, as the less time you spend on a section, the less likely you'll cause a domino effect. Getting the rescues requires you to deal with this risk, especially since reaching the wire rescue necessitates a way to reach it, which can simply require being careful if using Mach Dash or Zero's double jump, or necessitate a careful setup where you handle the other hazards in a way that lets you use a riskier method. The first Illumina encounter requires you to deal with a unique property. During this fight, group jets can come from left or right. Due to Illumina's wire being on the right with contact damage and her attacks leaving an afterimage for a short period after reaching the foreground, your actions here can work against you depending on where the group jets come from, requiring you to recognize a bad scenario and handle it accordingly, without being swept up by Illumina's attacks. The point at which you take care of group jets in relation to when you defeat the mid-boss here will influence the spawn cycle of the next group, bringing this aspect into the stage section. Both of Illumina's attacks return in the second encounter. While its long startup allows you to defeat it before it begins proper, handling it buster only will prevent you from doing so in time, leading to 2 walls emerging sporting 4 high health lasers each. Facing this boss, if optional, will require setup. The lasers randomly choose out of preset attack patterns, but several of them can compromise you if you don't deal with at least the bottom ones in order to dodge Illumina's attacks. Illumina will attack after the walls form, beginning with one of her mid-stage attacks, then pausing briefly to choose again. However, taking out 4 lasers destroys the walls, causing Illumina to interrupt what she's doing to respawn them. This can save you from a bad scenario if you can deal with a laser quickly enough, but it also means you'll have to risk taking care of another set of bottom ones again right after. Illumina's attacks create a dynamic with the lasers. While they have patterns you can learn to recognize what to do in a scenario, you still have to react quickly while handling Illumina's own attacks, which are aimed at you. Even if you don't panic, you can be overwhelmed easily in this scenario. And because you need to jump in order to attack Illumina, you're constantly at risk of doing so at the wrong time due to impatience. This is strengthened by one attack Illumina can't choose at first. After pausing, she will release 2 ground snipers before its next attack. These enemies move in a square path around the area, stopping at one of the corners to fire 2 spread shots, one after another, the direction of which is influenced by the player's position. This can create all sorts of scenarios, from having to leap over both of them in the middle while a laser is firing above, to having one open when you don't expect or in a top corner, or just surviving long enough that Illumina gets to release more of them, leading to 3 or 4 being on screen at once. The core of these enemies' design is that they can be hit only when they stop to attack, meaning that while an efficient player can use this to prevent a domino effect, you're bound to start stressing out as they move around, since they can do so in any corner, all while you still have to take care of the rest of the fight. This leads to the encounter being exhilarating. You can speed it up, but if you don't use the few attacks that can trivialize it, you're bound to put yourself at risk by doing so, making for an encounter that necessitates managing aspects of it under high pressure. Upon Illumina's defeat, the player gets the choice of another route portal or the path to the boss. Within this small area, there's a single rescue near the boss gate, and a heavy amount of nightmare viruses, one that's higher on each difficulty. When playing normally, you can get the rescue without issue. However, since viruses are a source for nightmare souls, there's an incentive to take care of them. All of them will try to ram the player, except for the few set to attack, so dealing with these first is important. Yet, the trick with the remaining ones is that most of them are infection-type viruses. The moment a rescue is in range, they will prioritize it. The higher the difficulty, the more dangerous nightmare virus behavior becomes, and with more of them, your greed might cost a rescue. The another route consists of wires and nightmare viruses. As you proceed forward, the area opens up, with the bottomless pit being lowered to let you access the bottom area. If you're simply getting through, you'll want to learn to take care of specific viruses on the fly to circumvent activating their attacks and stick to the top path. However, if you want to get the rescues, you'll have to clear out most viruses, which are often used to counter you. A group where one attempts to ram you while another is shooting, or one between two rescues connected by wires. Its most notable aspect are the bottom 3 rescues. These have several viruses near them, and one is on top of the middle rescue. It activates with a delay, but if you don't manage to immediately deal with it, the rescue is done for. The others are relatively harmless, however, as they're set to shot behavior, but given that you have to dodge these shots on top of wires, you're likely to be overwhelmed, failing to ensure the rescue's safety. The top viruses also respawn as you move back and forth in the bottom area, meaning that to reach the top path again, you'll have to deal with those in your way quickly before the rest activate and swarm you. If you choose to deal with this section quickly, you'll be able to avoid dealing with some of this, like not having to care about the infection virus respawning, but at the cost of having to do all of this while constantly moving. The Nightmare S for this stage are Nightmare Iron and Nightmare Fire. Iron spawns at preset points in the stage sections, usually requiring you to dash below or jump over it, affecting your routing. It can be used to reach the wire rescue more easily, but presents difficulty to get through the end of the nut route quickly due to blocking your path near 2 viruses. Fire spawns meteors during scrolling sections, having a delay between each set. These are somewhat random in position, yet the downward constant movement nature of the terrain means you can outrun them with relative ease. However, having it active in the another route can lead to harsh consequences, as its open design makes you very open to the barrage of meteors, encouraging you to activate Iron to take its place if you cause Fire to be active and want to go for another route. Infinity Mijinion himself puts the game's tendency of having the player juggle several obstacles at a time into the context of a frantic fight. His attacks are made to complement the uniquely tall yet cramped arena. Arrow ray's direction and height is decided by the player's position, moving vertically upon the player passing it to try and block their path, while in contrast, Giga Arrow Ray is a static attack where he crashes down to the center, releasing 8 arrows, 4 to each side, along with 2 orbs going across the ground. There are openings between the arrows and above Mijinion, but the arrows are fast enough to make using them difficult, and the orbs prevent you from using simple positioning to dodge the attack, forcing movement. Additionally, after enough attacks are performed, he will use Charge Attack, chasing you and pausing several times to release a spread of 8 shots, which are released in front of him, demanding more careful positioning on the fly. But none of these attacks exist in isolation. Mijinion's last attack is Luciferase, which has him release several bubbles that track you. Some of these, usually earlier or later ones, move with a delay, and while they can be destroyed, it's usually better to misdirect them so you can despawn them. However, doing so hastily can lead to having a bubble catch you off guard if you fail to despawn one, especially if you panic due to Mijinion's next attack. Mijinion's core mechanic is cloning. Hitting him with most attacks will cause him to spawn a clone at 75%, 50%, and 25% health, while using slashes will cause a chance of a clone spawning on each hit. Clones are stationary, only being able to perform a version of Luciferase with a delay between usages, but they have a high amount of health, and the first Luciferase is done after a clone spawns. This is combined with all of the previous attacks, and if the player doesn't understand the fight well or simply slips up, this can lead to the player spiraling down from panic. This is where the fight's micromanaging aspect comes to play. On top of having to misdirect and dodge well, you have to plan ahead as you dodge attacks, trying to predict how bubbles or clones might corner you depending on what Mijinion does, and even gambling on certain scenarios, like misdirecting the bubbles while dodging under attack, or relying on clone spawns being nearby to amass them in a general area. As Mijinion is knocked back each time he spawns a clone, you can interrupt a potentially deadly attack by having him brought to a specific amount of health or risking using a slash in order to survive. How you have to keep track of several variables, how they impact you differently depending on how it goes, how it harshly punishes carelessness, and how its frantic nature is unlike most bosses in the series makes this one of my favorite fights. The boss levels and difficulty modes further add to this. The different health values per boss level make it harder to reach thresholds, but the amount of bubbles spawned by a luciferase usage and the amount of clones there can be on screen from a slash attack are also increased with levels. The latter can be used on lower levels to spawn clones at the top of the screen and deal with Mijinion more easily after, but can't be done on higher levels. The former, however, has a unique effect. While the amount of bubbles spawned rises, the overall cap does not, meaning that a single luciferase usage is more dangerous, but if there's at least 2 instances of it being performed around the same time, this will make one of them potentially harmless, creating another aspect to gamble on. With each difficulty mode, the bubbles' speed rises. The lower speeds are easier to dodge, but can backfire as a result, while on an extreme, the higher speed means easier misdirection, but a higher chance of filling the screen or getting cornered. Weapon Center stage graphics take on a somewhat surreal approach. As the terrain is formed out of downward slopes, the stage background is set in an angled perspective, with many floors of weapons rotating to create an impression of you descending through the area. Circling around Illumina was also done in a similar perspective, towering over you. The foreground's maroon and dark gray are contrasted with the muted emerald color of the background, which helps Illumina's bright yellows and purples stand out, while still making the stage look grandiose even after her defeat. The stage's aesthetics culminate in the boss arena, where you reach a destroyed portion of the center, getting to see it spiral down with the luminous destroyed remains reaching for you from the background, illuminated by bright rays from above. The stage's music adds to its atmosphere, being triumphant from the intro, yet using gentle synths to feel illuminating and calming, helping the stage stand out from industrial or abandoned areas of the game, and making use of a guitar to fit the fast pace. Infinity Mijinion's design is characterized by the core in the middle of his body, which illuminates the rest of him through the glass openings in his limbs. The oxygen mask and glass encasing his head create the impression of a flight helmet, and the green emanating throughout him contrasts with his purple and white color scheme. His opening animation has small bubbles formed counterclockwise, each bubble gravitating towards the center to form a larger bubble, which pops to reveal Mijinion. During Giga Arrow Ray, he reforms out of liquid and slams down, retracting his tail into the core before using it to release orbs to the ground. While during Luciferase, his head rotates backward in order to extend the core from the opening to release the bubbles, before rotating back on. The boss is more aggressive than the others, but due to the stage pushing you forward and being brief, retrying the fight in a challenge run isn't harsh, making for a unique way to balance a full stage run while also incentivizing keeping a good flow throughout. A straightforward stage is a staircase of infinite possibilities.